ushering her to stay away for the time being. And if something happens to him, he wants her to return to Vincent's place. Sylvie, being the defiant child, chooses to ignore his warnings. Arthur can barely walk and he begs to stay out of this for once. She listens to his words, entrusting that he's going to return home. We get a menacing shot of our boy walking towards the eldritch monstrosity. His brain scrambled in emotion as he leapt on top of a rock. Arthur then casts an ice spell and concentrates his undivided attention on the S-class beast. He's the first to launch his attack, reflecting how Virion felt necessary to knock him out immediately after the boy entered the integrate phase. He's hoping to get this done quickly so he can reduce the backlash of the ability afterwards. Arthur's ice affinity freezes the vines in place. However, despite his control of ambient mana, he still has trouble dealing with the spell. With the vines frozen in his path, he lunges forth to freeze everything ahead, clashing nearer and nearer to the monster's face. Arthur's trouble increases when he sees the vines breaking free and moving despite being frozen. He freezes them again right before they reach his face. In fact, the ability he used just now is called Absolute Zero, and it has completely neutralized the monster. With all the time in the world, Arthur concentrates 3 elemental affinities in the palm of his hand, his body eroded in purple, crackling lightning. This attack obliterates the creature's face and obliterates what was left of its vines. With the boss monster defeated, blood floods out of his body from every opening. Our boy has saved the day at the cost of his own life. He faints to the ground with nothing more to offer. Cutting back to the city of Xyrus, his family is having a moment of their own, with Ellie exhausting herself due to training. They put her to bed as Reynolds hovers over her. All of a sudden, a noise followed by the glowing gem puts both of them at unease. Arthur's mother is in utter disbelief and hopes that the ring is malfunctioning. The boy's consciousness is weary, and his entire body is filled with pain. He coughs blood as Elijah sees him finally waking up. He begs Elijah to break the healing crystal in his glove. Following his instructions, Elijah quickly gets to work. He shatters the gem, which releases a pool of healing magic that frees Arthur's fingers from his unrestrained ice magic. He experiences a small sense of relief, but just can't seem to forget the bastard who ditched them. His mind is fixated on the thought of revenge for a second, until he remembers Jasmine and asks to see how she's doing. Elijah points to his side as she's also knocked unconscious. Unfortunately, in her case, she suffered an even more brutal attack as her body wasn't enhanced with mana at the time. Elijah could treat the burn the best he could, but he's certain that she suffered internal damage on top of that. Arthur senses urgency and instructs him to use the second gem on her. Elijah follows through sensibly, healing Jasmine's injuries by a lot. He's certain that she'll be fine in a few hours to come. The boy is thankful of his birthday present being the gemstones made by her mother. He recalls his current level of suffering to be familiar from when he was 4 years old. Switching to Sylvie's side, she senses that her father's awake now and lunges to approach the dungeon. Meanwhile, the bastard Lucas is seen hurrying out of the place barely in one piece. Arthur tells the winged dragon to simply focus on her training for now, since they're clear of danger. He reminds her that there's nothing to worry about, so she should simply focus on her training for now. Their conversation cuts off there with Elijah checking on our boy's health. Arthur jokes that he's in tip-top condition to run a marathon. Bro is out here competing with David Goggins. He's sure as hell persistent. Busy in thought, Elijah decides to shift the topic, finding himself surprised to see the masked swordsman being just as young as him. This makes our boy remember that he's lost his ultra-cool mask. Not even Elijah could find it in the ruins of the battlefield. That's fine, but Arthur is more troubled about his sword and asks if he found a stick. Thankfully, Elijah recovered the weapon by chance, which relieves Arthur quite a bit as he falls down again. He's infinitely grateful to this guy saving their lives and protecting his weapon, when in reality, he could have prioritized himself and left the dungeon. It's a noble deed, a truly noble one. Elijah argues that if he did that, he would be no different from Lucas. The boy laughs, disagreeing with that statement, because that spoiled brat is far worse. Glass's boy wants to know why Arthur chose to stick around and fight for others when he could have left at the right moment. To this, Arthur responded that he promised someone very dear to him to become a person who could cherish others around him. This kind of confession makes the usually stoic Elijah laugh because he thinks Arthur is speaking no differently from an old man. He wonders the kind of life someone his age must have led up until now to believe in such things. Arthur changes the topic and asks how long he was knocked unconscious for. Elijah isn't sure for certain but claims it's more than 1 day's time at the least. Arthur regrets that they'll be stuck here until Jasmine is up and running, so he thinks this is a good opportunity to become familiar with one another. He extends his hand to Elijah, this time introducing himself by name and even his nickname Art, with a smile. Thus begins the start of a new friendship. Elijah introduces himself as one from the Dwarven lands. Tapping the metal, Arthur asks if he's the one responsible for creating the metal shelter. It turns out it was Elijah's only way to ensure the cavern didn't collapse on them. This means the Elderwood Guardian's body was the reason it maintained stability for a long while. Arthur knows for a fact that ordinary people can't create metal out of thin air. That is, until said person is a dwarf, of course. Elijah realizes that his final secret is out the gutter now, while Arthur is willing to hear his side of the story. Glasses Boy thinks it's only a fair trade if Arthur also reveals what he did to turn his hair white and become a god for a moment. Elijah could even remember Arthur's eyes turning a glowing purple, so there's a lot to explain there. Our main character is fine with the explanations as long as they're trading equal information. Elijah starts off by confirming his suspicions regarding his origin. He comes from the Dwarven Kingdom, where Elder Radius took care of him and never talked much about the boy's parents. The only memories he has as a child are filled with incomplete flashes. Anyway, he lived quite a normal life there before penetrating past the dark orange stage. That's when he felt a surge of energy and went unconscious. When he woke up, the boy was surrounded by spikes of metal all around him. That's when Radius decided that it was best for the boy to explore the rest of the continent without really attaching a core reason to it. Much of his own powers are shrouded in mystery, and he always gets this uneasy feeling about something out of his control, about his origin. Just when it's Arthur time to explain, Jasmine releases a loud snore in her dream. She's out cold talking to Arthur in her dreams, causing both of them to release a hearty laughter. Elijah apologizes for his emotional story, but Arthur thinks it's fine. He wants to know about the masked swordsman's real origins now. Arthur straight up tells him that he's proficient in quadra-elemental casting, and he's an augmenter with the deviance of ice and lightning. It's so much to take in at once that Elijah carelessly bumps his own head in shock. He thought he earned the top spot for being a weirdo, but Arthur's composition just knocked him out of the water. Arthur explains the reason behind the markings, as he's a beast tamer who released his beast back there. Elijah is getting continually stunned by his words, especially when he discovers that Arthur's only 11. Elijah is older than him by a year, but he thinks it isn't a proud admission. Hearing that, Arthur's the one trying his best to contain his laugh. Both misfits laugh at each other in good memories. Still, Arthur hasn't fully recovered and feels pain from his injuries. He uses the final gem on himself, and that's when Jasmine wakes up seeing the boy's condition. She quickly grabs his body, apologizing for failing him. Jasmine sheds tears, overwhelmed by the guilt of being unable to protect him. Arthur softens his expression seeing her in this state, and tells her that it's all right. He embraces her with love as she finds herself overlapped with her actions. Arthur soothes her, stating that it was his choice to stay behind and fight, and she got hurt for it. While this is happening, Arthur muses a thought. It's the first time he feels that Jasmine is smaller than him. He releases a slight ache, which makes her worried about his injuries. She wants Elijah to use the storage ring to release their bags. Thankfully, she packed an emergency kit for them to use. After a while, she gives our boy a bandage treatment. He looks like a mummy with how much he's covered. Arthur takes his stand, supported by his friends. It's time for them to head home now. The trio makes it out alive as Elijah releases his metal barrier. Outside, the entire place is frozen in ice. Arthur questions if anyone from their team survived. It turns out that Brauld and Reginald didn't make it, so it's likely no one else made it either. Arthur's overcome by guilt, while Jasmine is curious to what happened to Samantha. Elijah explains that he created the metal shelter around her around the girl before they separated, but he's unsure if she made it out alive. Then again, Arthur's asking the same question. There's no telling how they're going to escape from this cage. He searches for the monster's beast core that was lost in the barrage of ice. Elijah wasn't able to locate it before, but he thinks he could try and find her now. Elijah concentrates his energy towards the earth, ordering it to search for the one missing. This spell is called the Earth's Pulse, and it sends a signal all around to detect life forms. Thankfully, he located Samantha in good shape, so he went up ahead to save her. His ability just now left Arthur stunned, because the spell usually only searches the surface instead of underground. Both of them decide to follow in his footsteps until Elijah comes to a stop. There, he sees the metal encasing he wrapped around Samantha. He grabs the metallic wall and carves it open, asking for her. Samantha is in seriously bad shape, burned and bruised all over her body. Elijah tries to reach for her, but Arthur thinks it's unsafe, as the vine is responsible for making her injuries worse. Thankfully, her breathing is good, but her fever is concerning. Arthur is glad that she's unconscious at the very least, or else she wouldn't have survived. But Elijah wonders if that's really a good thing at all. Being the strongest of the group right now, Jasmine carries her flailing body and suggests they return. Arthur looks around, worried that he won't be able to track the creature's beast core. A priceless core of an S-class mana beast will be lost for good. As the group is walking along, they feel a sudden tremor underneath. Elijah is worried and prepares his spell, but Arthur stops him because he knows what's coming. The dungeon breaks from the top, and what appears before their eyes surprises all of them. A matured Sylvie in her mighty form is here at last. Arthur is stunned, to say the least, as she was tiny just a couple years ago. And now she's tall and strong. Sylvie licks his face, ruining our boy's hair. Elijah shudders as he can't comprehend how a wyvern is capable of growing 4 limbs. Then it hits him. It's a dragon. A real dragon. Arthur confirms it, shocking him even more. He adjusts his hair and adores his bond, introducing her as Sylvie. Elijah can't figure how dragons, who were thought to be extinct for centuries, have reappeared again. Arthur emphasizes that he needs to keep her very existence a secret. Jasmine isn't a threat since she already knows. Sylvie gives her the same licking treatment, ruining her hair also. Elijah is probably having the same reaction as us, because he's trying to figure out how an 11-year-old boy can be so overpowered on top of having a dragon on his side. Anyway, they decide to use her as a lift. Arthur instructs Elijah to hop on as it's time for them to leave this hellhole. They land outside the boss's lair, and the rest of the journey is traversed by foot, where the group takes on the Batrunners. The monsters end up getting scared the heck away after seeing a giant dragon nearby. Elijah is really confused why they didn't bring Toothless over here from the beginning of the raid. As for Samantha, she's slowly regaining consciousness. They put her on the ground for some rest. She opens her eyes and finds our boy even prettier without the mask on. Arthur just wants her to conserve her energy. Samantha reveals that she's holding on to something Dara and critical. She not only acquired the Beast Core but also protected Arthur's shattered mask. Both things make him smile and he praises her for it. Arthur thinks it's a good idea to split the Beast Core's profits after selling it. However, Jasmine doesn't want it and thinks Arthur is the most deserving of the group. The same goes for Elijah, who seriously doesn't want anything to do with the monster's remains. Arthur tries to remind these fools how much the mana core is worth. Samantha leaves it in his care, emphasizing that she's only breathing right now because of Arthur's final stand. She thinks he's rightfully deserving of the reward. The boy takes it as the rest of his allies are content leaving the core in his hands. He thanks them for entrusting him and turns to Samantha. He checks her pulse and recommends both Jasmine and Elijah to get some help as soon as possible. The both of them get up, but right before leaving, Elijah leaves his emergency bag with our boy to make sure he's up to date with supplies in case he needs them. It's here where Arthur sees the mana scroll and senses the urge to write back to his parents to make them not worry anymore. The message is sent, and he's glad they won't be worried when he returns to them. Next up, he's curious to learn how Sylvie grew so much by devouring cores. Sylvie hunts a lot of creatures to get this big and strong, which makes him wonder if she's capable of using her transformation ability. She demonstrates it by molding her form back to the tiny little lizard we all know and love. The little girl draws near as Arthur pets her well. His own injuries are getting rough on him, and it's going to take at least a few hours before help arrives. He thinks he should be okay with the newly acquired Beast Core. Taking a deep breath, Arthur remembers the name of Lucas Wykes well. The same boy who belongs to a family filled with a notorious reputation. One man's actions caused the death of Brauld and inflicted dangerous injuries upon the rest of the group. While he's filled with vengeance, Arthur wants to be careful with how he settles things. Only one thing is for certain this time. He doesn't care how long it will take. This man will make sure to settle the score with Lucas no matter what. The rescue team eventually arrived and took care of the situation. Samantha is rushed to the hospital while Brauld meets his end. Arthur is doing all right in one piece while his friends are handling the report with the branch master. The traumatizing retelling of the story comes to an end. Arthur is fed up that they're going this far just to pursue the truth of the story. Each of them shared what they could. Caspian lets them rest up for the meantime when suddenly, Lucas Wykes the bitch comes thriving with his guards. Jasmine and Elijah draw weapons to demolish this fucker at once, but Arthur recommends they don't do anything for now. Lucas acts like he's the innocent one of the group, only increasing Caspian's headache. The spoiled brat wonders how the group managed to escape from a clinch, and even accuses them for sacrificing a life in order to save their own. Caspian roars, standing to shut him up, but Lucas keeps on going, claiming that Samantha must have become the sacrifice of the group. Next, he turns to accuse Brauld of being the sacrificial pawn. His words are tossed shut when Arthur slaps a blade right next to his face, slicing his ear clean without even his notice. Lucas acts like he's the one getting attacked, but Arthur has had enough as he gets up with his overwhelming rage. Each of the men experience a strange shift in pressure. Lucas can't believe that they're standing around without even trying to protect him. The guards are ordered to attack at once. In response, Arthur merely makes a fool out of all of them in his injured state. He doesn't even have to kill them and casually dodges their attacks. Caspian warns the boy to be careful as his premature actions could lead to issues. However, Arthur has already chucked his fist for a strike. Turns out, he just wanted to retrieve his weapon, but his attack just now scared Lucas shitless. That's for sure. This guy is literally shaking in his boots while Arthur acts like he just wanted to reclaim his blade. He then turns to Caspian, who orders his assistant to escort Lucas to the medical ward immediately. Arthur wants both of his friends gone for a one-on-one conversation with the branch master. Caspian was scared for a moment and recommended Arthur to not fall to provocations. However, Arthur ruthlessly marches with a case of his own. He has the full power to squash the bug and protect his identity using his mask. He also really doesn't like Caspian's tone, as if to suggest that he's the one threatening the boy. Arthur releases a bone-chilling question, asking if Caspian is capable enough to protect Lucas from his wrath. This time, his eyes are different. These are the eyes of a merciless killer. The branchmaster maintains his calm and explains that he isn't threatening him, but rather saying for the best of his interests. Even if he manages to squash the bug, the Wykes family won't stay silent. They'll start with Jasmine and then target the rest of the group. Their connections too. He thinks it's unwise to earn the Wykes family's attention until Arthur fosters the capacity to protect his loved ones. Even with his strength, it's impossible for him to deal with someone like Lucas's half-brother. This is actually an enlightening realization for Arthur, who thanks Caspian for his words. He comes forward for the real subject of interest. He sits on the branch master's chair and claims that the guild would only do its best to benefit a talent like him. Caspian feels an air of confidence coming from him and offers whatever assistance he can. Arthur lays out a list of his demands and promptly exits the room. There, he finds his friends waiting for him, who are worried he might kill Lucas for sure. He changes topics because he's seriously hungry after all that. Arthur walks away, leaving both of his allies concerned over his state. Let's see how the hearing goes out. Both Arthur and Lucas are presented on each side for their case in front of the jury. They've come to conclude that among the reports, Lucas is the rat who betrayed his party, and thus his ranking is stripped at once. Also, he can never be enlisted as an adventurer again. They want him to return his card, which is what follows. Arthur is unimpressed that he was freed with such a minor punishment when his crime could have ended with him in prison. The panel turns to Arthur for his crimes against Lucas Wykes and potentially the rest of the Wykes family. The Adventurers Guild has come to a conclusion to ban Note completely from the city until Lucas Wykes' term at the academy ends. This is the exact outcome the boy wished for. He's smiling under his mask and decides to object against the decision on purpose to make it seem like he's worried. The panel emphasizes their order, claiming that they refuse to take away his guild license because of his righteous acts. He will be allowed to continue his adventures as an adventurer,